nonsense, and I do think it is nonsense, because you are putting aside your responsibilities to family, you're putting aside your responsibilities to your children, and that is the tragedy that we are seeing in the society, and it is wrecking this society. It's costing this society billions of dollars in drug abuse, criminal acts, you name it.
True.
And that is the result of the obsession on self-fulfillment, and that goes for men or women.
Do you think people should stay in marriages when they're not happy?
Absolutely.
You do?
If there are children there, they absolutely have that responsibility. And once they begin putting, their thoughts in terms of a higher responsibility, other than just to themselves, that marriage will start to take on a firmer base and become concrete.
And are children served by being in a family where their parents are unhappy?
Well, ask the children, and most of them will say yes. They'd much prefer to be they despair of the loss of one parent or the other, and it stays with them for years. They really never get over it.
Before I want to give Robert a chance to respond, but I just want to say I'm struck by this statistic with regard to divorce, Steve. Turns out that in states that presume joint custody, that going into a potential divorce, that there's likely to be shared parenting, and that you won't, as a mother, get alimony disguised as child support, and you won't get control of the kids, and you won't be able to use them as weapons, and you won't be able to use them to hurt your ex-husband. There's less divorce. I think one of the things we've done is we've actually built an economic incentive for people, particularly women, to get divorced. Do you think there's any merit to that?
There's a combination of course, the thing that I just mentioned, but also there are incentives in the court system that clearly favor the women. Now, the irony of it is that when it really comes down to it, and I'm sure Robert has seen this in couples that have divorced, that the pain on the part of both partners goes on and on and on. I mean, the woman may have the house, they may have the kid, maybe this and that or the other, but she is also suffering tremendously and says, why did I do this?
No, it never ends. Divorce never ends. I want to take advantage of the fact that we have Robert here, and here's what I want to ask you. You have a couple come into your office. They are at the edge. They have conflicts that cannot be resolved, and the only apparent solution is divorce. But they're in your office, which means that there is a glimmer of hope. Now, I want you to tell us what you know from years of experience. I want you to give up the trade secrets. I want you to tell us now what you know that the rest of us don't know about how to help people who are right at divorce to pull them back from the edge.
I wish I had the answer in terms of being able to always, reel in a couple that are at the edge of divorce. The reality is in therapy, whether you're working with couples or individuals, that the crux of the control is going to be across the couch from me. It's going to be sitting and facing me. So the first thing that I do with a couple that comes to me because they're in crisis is to begin to assess, and first of all I will probably meet with them individually to try to get their own personal feelings independent of one another. But what I need is for them to commit to the fact that they are truly willing to give it a try. To begin to give up preconceptions as to what marriage is supposed to be, and this may go to the point that you were making, to give up the notions, the fantasy notions about what they're supposed to have, but the willingness to simply participate and to take ownership of their behavior in this process. I emphasize to every couple that the capacity to begin to achieve success is not going to be because the other one is doing it. It's going to be because you take ownership of what you're doing. And then it's really a matter of being honest with oneself in terms of whether or not you're willing to do that. I can't make that willingness occur.
Can you help people reconnect with the love that they had? Is it possible for a therapist to help them do that?
Yes. And I say that most people are very surprised, because for love to be re-experienced, okay, in some cases, for love to be experienced in the context of a relationship, what you need to do, and this is where the cognitive behavioral therapy comes in, what you need to do is stop demanding it. It is one of the interesting paradoxes of human behavior, that the more we need to feel some way, the less we're going to feel it. So if you have a couple, for example, I've had couples come to my office where there's the sense that the love is gone, or maybe the love was never there sufficiently. And there's a sense that there's more that they need, and they don't want it. They don't want their lives to go on like this. Certainly I can well appreciate that, and I do. But what I do tell them is that some part of the problem is the demand characteristics that they're placing on the relationship. You can find love, but it's going to be because you participate in doing the things that allow it to emerge.
Would you ever advise them to get divorced?
I haven't advised people to get divorced.
Do you agree with what Steve said, that it might be better for people to stay unhappily married for the sake of the children?
No, I don't, because I don't think that an unhappy marriage is an environment in which children are going to be able to thrive. The anger, the animosity is something that spills out and oftentimes gets displaced on the kids. I do agree that it's a tragedy when families break up. It is an absolute tragedy. And it is extraordinarily difficult post the separation to do what you're supposed to do for the sake of these children.
I do want to talk about, Maria, do fathers come to you not yet divorced, and do you advise them on how to repair their marriages or whether to get divorced? Is that something that comes up for you?
A number of guys do come to me, and actually even a number of women have come to me also, and what I usually say to them is, go sit in your space and see if there's not maybe an ounce of maybe some reconciliation there before you make this final step. Because the courts do empower people to get divorced very easily. They make it quite easy, you know, submit the documentation. They also empower, once you're divorced or separated, they also empower each of the parties, if not the one party or the other, to cause accusations against the other party. They also empower the kids, I think, also to play against a parent too. So they end up empowering the families this way, which adds to, I think, people separating even more, and hard feelings.
I want to talk about the false accusations that follow divorce and the strategies that people have. I have one other question for Robert. No. A couple has gotten divorced, and someone walks into your office in the depths of despair, unable to function, because love, the one thing that cannot end, has ended. What do you do?
Well, what I do is I treat this individual as somebody who's facing essentially mourning. There's a death that has gone on here. And the death is something that is experiential, and it can't simply be wiped away. And so the first thing that I do is normalize the way that they feel. I try to let them understand that the despair that they feel is a natural part of what they have to go through as a result of experiencing this loss.
So you allow them to accept the despair.
Absolutely.
And does allowing them to accept the despair make it easier for them to work through it?
It's a start, because once you accept the fact that the pain that you're feeling is not somehow abnormal and is not never-ending, but really a part of a process of healing that begins at that point, then steps begin to start to emerge in terms of how do you start to go from this point of this low point in your life to where you're going to go. And of course, they don't know where they're going either, and that's part of it.
Time is short. I want to get to what Maria said and what Steve has raised. There's a divorce, and one person makes a false accusation to try to get control and leverage and power. Is it going to be the man or the woman who makes the false accusation?
It'll
typically,
be the woman.
It's the woman.
So.
Would you agree that's a woman's weapon?
I think so.
Do you think it's a woman's weapon?
I think typically so, yeah.
Yeah.
Not necessarily.
I don't agree with it.
Do you think that...
I don't think the court should empower them to do that.
But here's what I found through my little counseling practice. I've had men who come to me and say that they've been thrown out of their homes based on false accusations. I know I only hear their side, but I tend to believe some of them. And it'll often turn out that there's been a history of domestic violence prior to the false accusation, but what may have happened is that she may have destroyed his property or hit him or abused him, and so I'll ask him, why didn't you call the police?
Right.
And his answer, this is almost a unanimous answer with men, is, I would never call the cops on my wife. But if she will and he won't, and the system rewards the first accuser, which is what it does, Maria,
It
yes?
does,
All right?
yes,
Then
you're right.
then the system is rigged from the start. Yes?
That is